So Dewanna Bonner is somebody that could have been 50 grand richer, but she decided she wanted to leave the Indiana Fever. That's her choice. It was her choice to be 50 grand poorer at the end of the day. She made that choice. Nobody else made that choice for her. She made the choice for herself. But if you guys don't know, obviously, Dewanna Bonner was a player for the Fever, and she's currently a player for absolutely nobody. She's currently a player for nobody. She's currently a player for YMCA Basketball Club.
Dewanna Bonner didn't just walk away from the Indiana Fever. She may have walked straight out of the WNBA for good. In a move that stunned fans and blindsided analysts, one of the league's most decorated veterans gave up her role on a playoff team, turned down over $100,000 in potential earnings, and vanished from the court with no clear plan or destination. No contract, no press conference, just silence. And now, the whispers are growing louder. Has Bonner quietly ended her own career? At the peak of her influence, Bonner was a trusted leader, a scoring machine, and a fan favorite. But when she turned down the opportunity to compete in the Commissioner's Cup and allegedly refused trade offers that didn't fit, everything changed. The league moved on fast. Younger players took her spot. Former rivals became rising stars, and the teams she once led are now finding success without her. This isn't just about one player sitting out a few games. This is about how ego, timing, and one risky decision may have erased a legendary career in real time. What really happened behind closed doors? Why is Dewanna Bonner now being called the WNBA's biggest mystery?
So anyway, we got to talk about this because Annie Costabile has released something on Front Office Sports. And again, she's probably the main WNBA journalist at this stage, but she's talking about the Dewanna Bonner situation. So WNBA countdown deadline could spur deals for Dewanna Bonner and Emma Meesseman. And effectively, it is that Emma Meesseman is the prize and Dewanna Bonner is the consolation.
When Dewanna Bonner decided to leave the Indiana Fever, it wasn't a graceful farewell or a strategic offseason move. It was abrupt, confusing, and to many completely unnecessary. The Fever were in a groove, positioned to make a run in the Commissioner's Cup, and Bonner was still considered one of the most experienced and reliable veterans in the league. But instead of embracing the challenge, she walked away. No warning, no official statement. Just gone. Reports quickly surfaced, suggesting that Bonner wasn't happy with her role. She allegedly felt the fit wasn't right, that the system didn't allow her to play her best basketball. Some insiders claim she even rejected trade opportunities that would have placed her on other playoff-caliber teams, whether it was pride, personal frustration, or a deeper conflict with the coaching staff. Bonner's decision sent shockwaves through the WNBA. Her exit wasn't just about a single player. Stepping away disrupted the entire roster structure. Of the Fever, they were forced to pivot, restructure their rotations, and find replacements on the fly. But the most shocking part, they didn't collapse without her. If anything, they started to thrive. That's where the questions began to snowball. Did Bonner overestimate her value to the team? Did she believe her presence was irreplaceable? The cold truth is, Indiana adapted quickly. Ari McDonald stepped in, younger talent rose to the occasion, and the team found a new rhythm without relying on Bonner's veteran presence. Instead of being remembered as the steady leader who guided her squad into the postseason, Bonner now finds herself watching from the sidelines with no team, no contract, and no clear path back. What makes this situation even more bizarre is the silence surrounding it. No one from Bonner's camp has made an official statement. The league hasn't commented. Coaches are tight-lipped. It's as if everyone has collectively decided to move on, leaving Bonner frozen in limbo. And in a league that rarely forgets or forgives abrupt exits, this kind of walkout comes with serious consequences. Her timing couldn't have been worse. Just as playoff races were heating up and rosters solidifying, Bonner took herself out of the game voluntarily. What she didn't anticipate was how quickly the game would move on without her. Dewanna Bonner's decision wasn't just emotional, it was expensive. By stepping away from the Indiana Fever when she didn't just forfeit her roster spot, she walked away from real money. The Commissioner's Cup alone offered a bonus of around $40,000 to each winning player. Add in her standard per-game salary, and the accumulation of missed opportunities. And Bonner's absence could end up costing her well over $100,000, and that number keeps growing. By choosing not to play, Bonner effectively made herself unavailable during one of the most financially rewarding stretches of the WNBA season. Sources around the league estimate she's already lost at least $50,000 between missed salary and bonus eligibility. If she remains unsigned through the rest of the season, that number could double. For a player in the later stages of her career, it's not just about the money, it's about the message. Teams are now questioning her reliability and commitment, especially when stakes are high. But it wasn't just about income. There were whispers that Bonner rejected multiple trade options, allegedly turning down moves that didn't meet her personal standard of fit. This insistence on finding the perfect situation may have cost her everything, in a league where opportunities are limited and every roster spot is earned. Waiting around for ideal circumstances is a dangerous game. At the same time, contenders were aggressively scouting players for the Commissioner's Cup and beyond. While Bonner sat out, teams like the Aces and Liberty were stacking their lineups and preparing for deep playoff runs. Instead of being part of that conversation, Bonner found herself completely removed from it. No team stepped forward. No insider reports hinted at a deal. The silence was deafening. Meanwhile, younger players were jumping at the chance to prove themselves. With Bonner's seat vacant, fresh talent stepped in and, in many cases, performed. It raised an uncomfortable question. Had Dewanna Bonner miscalculated her value? Was she betting on a version of herself that teams no longer prioritized? The WNBA is a league of momentum. When a player stalls out, especially during a pivotal stretch, their market value doesn't just decline, it evaporates. And for Bonner, that one costly gamble may have shut more doors than she ever imagined. While Dewanna Bonner sat on the sidelines, another name quietly began to dominate conversations behind the scenes: Meesseman, a former Finals MVP and one of the most versatile forwards in the league. Emma was rumored to be considering a WNBA return, and that single possibility changed everything for Bonner. Suddenly, teams that might have considered picking up Bonner hit the brakes. According to multiple league insiders, top contenders like the Phoenix Mercury, New York Liberty, and Minnesota Lynx all began waiting on Meesseman's decision. Why? Because Emma isn't just another veteran. She's younger, more dynamic, and frankly, more impactful on both ends of the floor. Once Meesseman entered the picture, Bonner's name started falling down the priority list. In fact, respected journalist Annie Costabile reported that across the league, Bonner was now viewed as the consolation prize, not the top target, not the game changer, just the backup plan in case Emma said no. That kind of public framing is brutal for any player, especially someone like Bonner, who once commanded top-tier respect and contract offers. The optics were harsh. One player, returning from a multi-year absence, was immediately considered a better option than Bonner, who had just been active weeks prior. It didn't help that Bonner had no recent performances to lean on. Her self-imposed exile left scouts with nothing to evaluate. Meanwhile, Meesseman's overseas play and prior reputation carried weight. It's not just a matter of who's better on paper. Teams saw Meesseman as a fit for modern WNBA, systems versatile, efficient, and unselfish. Bonner, in contrast, was viewed as someone unwilling to adapt, possibly difficult to manage, and coming off a puzzling walkout. It's not that Bonner was bad, it's that Meesseman was easier to trust. This league doesn't wait. While Bonner hesitated, Meesseman's return ignited a reshuffling of team strategies. The Mercury held off on moves. The Aces looked elsewhere. Even Indiana, the team Bonner left, re-entered the Emma sweepstakes. Bonner may have thought she was being patient, holding out for the right fit. But in that pause, a new name stepped forward and took her place. And once that happens in professional sports, getting back in line isn't just hard, it's nearly impossible. As the days turned into weeks, the reality of Dewanna Bonner's situation became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just holding out. She wasn't taking a break. She was completely unsigned, unclaimed, and unwanted, at least, by every WNBA front office that mattered. There was no contract offer, no training invite, not even a serious rumor of a potential landing spot. For someone with multiple championships and years of elite-level play, This was a stunning fall from relevance. Bonner's supporters pointed to her experience, her leadership, her ability to show up in big games, but none of that seemed to matter anymore. The narrative had shifted. Instead of being seen as a veteran asset, Bonner was now the punchline of online jokes. YMCA All-Star, the fittest free agent in America, and worse, her social media presence hinted at private workouts, but that only added to the mystery. Where was she really headed? Was she even getting calls? The rumors about Phoenix began to fade. The Aces had already filled key slots. Indiana made it clear they were looking in a different direction. Teams that once would have fought to bring her in were now focused on youth, chemistry, and long-term development. Bonner had aged out of the window, and worse, she had walked away during a crucial moment. That's a hard sin to forgive in professional sports. Insiders speculated that her lack of flexibility scared off GMs, refusing trades, prioritizing personal fit over playing time, walking away when her team needed her most. Those aren't the kind of traits executives gamble on, especially when younger players are hungry and easier to manage. What's even more damaging is the absence of a public narrative. Bonner hasn't spoken. No interviews, no explanations, no framing of her decision. That silence has allowed others to define her story for her hand so far. It hasn't been flattering. The WNBA is ruthless with momentum. When you're playing well, you're everywhere. When you disappear, you're forgotten fast. And now, with each passing game and every new roster addition, the path back for Bonner narrows. She isn't just out of a job, she's out of the conversation. And in this league, that's how careers quietly end. The most brutal part of this entire situation for Dewanna Bonner. The Indiana Fever didn't just survive without her, they actually improved. What was once her team transformed rapidly after her departure, not into a rebuilding mess, but into a sharper, more cohesive unit. And the turning point came the moment the Fever brought in Ari McDonald. Ari wasn't just a temporary fill-in, she quickly became a spark plug, bringing energy, speed, and a sense of urgency to the floor. While Bonner was known for her slow-paced, methodical approach, Ari pushed the tempo and shook up the team's identity. It worked. The Fever started winning games they had no business winning. In one of the biggest matchups of the season, they took the Commissioner's Cup and walked away with both the title and the bonus money that Bonner left on the table. It wasn't just about Ari with Bonner gone. The rotations opened up. Natasha Howard got more minutes, and despite not being a perfect fit, delivered clutch performances. Role players like Kelsey Mitchell and Nolissa Smith stepped into leadership roles. The chemistry looked better, the offense flowed cleaner, and the locker room, by all appearances, it settled. The truth is, sometimes subtraction adds more than addition ever could. Bonner's absence may have allowed players to break out of her shadow. Her style required touches, space, and control, things that can quietly suppress rising talent. Once she left, those same players flourished. To make it worse, fans weren't clamoring for her return. No hashtags, no major media calls to bring her back. It was as if everyone agreed, intentionally or not, that the team was better off. Even the front office moved forward, scouting for international talent to fill out the roster. Instead of reaching back out to Bonner, her gamble didn't just cost her a roster spot. It cost her legacy with the team she helped build. Because when a team moves on without you, and does it successfully, it leaves no room for a comeback. The Fever didn't burn without her. They reignited. And for Bonner, watching that from the outside might be the hardest loss of all. There was a time when Dewanna Bonner walked into any locker room as a star, a multiple-time All-Star, a two-time champion, a name that carried weight across the league. But now, the whispers say she might only return to the WNBA as a hardship player, short-term emergency option teams use when injuries pile up. For someone with her resume, that's not just a demotion, it's a humiliation. Hardship contracts are designed for teams in desperation. They're not guaranteed, they're not glamorous, and they're not meant for former franchise players. Yet, according to league insiders, that may be Bonner's only path back this season. Teams are filling their rosters. The window is closing. And barring a wave of unexpected injuries, there's no reason to bring her back unless they absolutely have to. That's how far her stock has dropped. It's a surreal thought. Just a few months ago, Bonner had a spot on a contender to chase another title and a solid paycheck. Now, she's watching games from home, hoping someone tweaks an ankle so she can get a call. That's not how a legendary career is supposed to wind down. Worse yet, the league seems unmoved. Nobody is rushing to her defense. Former teammates haven't spoken out. Analysts aren't pushing for her return. It's as if the WNBA has silently agreed to move on, leaving Bonner behind without ceremony or closure. That quiet rejection is louder than any headline. And still, Bonner hasn't said a word, no interview, no social post explaining her absence, no sign of a public plan. That silence gives room for speculation, and speculation has not been kind. People assume the worst, that she overplayed her hand, that her ego got in the way, that she's no longer willing to be anything less than the center of attention. But here's the harsh reality. The league doesn't care about pride, it cares about production. And if Bonner's only shot at returning is through a hardship exemption, then that's the role she'll have to accept, if any team even offers it, from max contract to emergency bench warmer. That's the cliff she's standing on now. And once you fall that far in professional sports, there's rarely a second climb. At the heart of Dewanna Bonner's downfall lies a word that's surfaced time and time again: fit. It's a vague term on the surface, but in the WNBA, it can mean everything. A player's ability to gel with a team's system, coaches, chemistry, and culture is often more valuable than their raw talent. Bonner didn't just walk away from Indiana because of playing time or disagreements. According to multiple sources, it was about fit, and her refusal to compromise may have sealed her fate. That's where ego enters the story. Bonner has always been known for her confidence. You don't become a two-time champion and one of the WNBA's most consistent scorers without believing in yourself, but there's a fine line between confidence and stubbornness, and some believe she crossed it. Reports suggest she rejected trade offers during her time with Indiana, not because they were bad teams, but because they weren't right for her style. Instead of adapting, she waited. Instead of adjusting her game, she held out for a situation that catered to her. In a league as competitive and fast-moving as the WNBA, that's a dangerous strategy. While she waited, the game changed around. Her coaches prioritized younger players who were hungry to learn and easy to mold. GMS looked for plug-and-play talent that wouldn't demand control. And as Emma Meesseman's name entered the mix, Bonner's value plummeted almost overnight. She went from a veteran asset to an afterthought simply because teams weren't willing to build around her anymore. And that silence, the lack of any public explanation, that only made it worse. Without a statement or even a simple post to control her narrative, Bonner let the media and fans write the story for her. They painted her as difficult, unwilling to evolve. Out of touch with today's WNBA, and when Annie Costabile's report labeled her a consolation prize, it stuck. Because it wasn't just commentary, it confirmed what the league had already started whispering. Bonner's desire to find the perfect fit didn't come from nowhere. She's earned the right to want a role that suits her. But the problem is, sometimes fit doesn't exist. Sometimes the team needs something different, and the player has to adjust. That's how pros extend their careers, by evolving, not resisting. Players like Candace Parker, who transitioned into new systems with different roles, managed to stay relevant and win titles deep into their careers. Bonner, on the other hand, stood still while the league moved forward. Fans who once adored her now question her decisions. And it's not because of one bad game or one-off night tits, because of what she chose to walk away from: a Commissioner's Cup run, a secure contract, a starting role. She gave it all up because she didn't like how it felt. Now she's left with no team, no minutes, and possibly no future. The fallout goes beyond just missing games. It's legacy damage. It's the slow erosion of trust between player and league. And in a league built on unity, reputation, and momentum, Bonner has managed to distance herself from all three. The WNBA may not slam the door shut in public, but in private, those doors close fast. And unless Bonner finds a way to adjust, speak up, and reframe her story, her career might not end with a jersey retirement or a farewell game. It might end quietly because nobody called her back. For Dewanna Bonner, the last sliver of hope hinges on something terrifyingly small: one open roster spot. That's all that remains. The Indiana Fever have space to add a 12th player to their lineup, and every move they make from this point forward could be the final nail in the coffin for Bonner's WNBA career. It's not hyperbole, it's not speculation, it's reality, and it's unfolding right now. This spot was once assumed to be hers by fans, by analysts, even by insiders. But as time passed, that assumption faded. Instead of calling her back, the Fever started looking overseas. Reports now suggest they're eyeing players finishing up international tournaments like the America Cup or Eurobasket. That means younger, fresher, cheaper talent. Players who come without baggage, who will say yes to whatever role is offered, and who won't need to be convinced that fit is good enough. In other words, the opposite of Dewanna Bonner. And let's be honest, it's not just Indiana. Other teams across the league are following the same pattern. Roster flexibility is king. Front offices are investing in development, speed, and team-first attitudes. Bonner's resume is impressive, but it doesn't align with where these teams are going. The WNBA is getting younger, faster, and more system-oriented. Stars still shine, but only if they shine on cue within the roles coaches create. Bonner, with her reluctance to adapt, no longer fits that model. That's what makes this final roster decision so crushing. Because if Indiana fills that 12th spot with someone else, that means they've moved on completely. There's no room for nostalgia, no space for a last-minute return. Once that door shuts, it's over. Bonner won't get a farewell tour or a redemption arc. She simply vanished from the rotation, from the headlines, and eventually from the conversation altogether. It's also a symbolic moment. This was the team she left, the team she once led. And now, the same team is building a future without her. Ari McDonald, Kelsey Mitchell, and Nolissa Smith are the faces of that future. They're the ones grinding in practice, showing up in big moments, and earning every minute. They're also the ones proving that Dewanna Bonner wasn't as irreplaceable as many once believed. Natasha Howard might have been the only player close to Bonner's experience level, still contributing consistently, but even she is being asked to evolve. With Emma Meesseman's potential arrival looming, Howard may get bumped to the bench or shuffled in the lineup. Nobody's safe, not even veterans, and that's the biggest sign that Bonner's chances are fading. If Natasha Howard has to fight for her spot, Bonner doesn't stand a chance walking back in mid-season expecting a guaranteed role. The timing couldn't be worse either. Contracts are about to become guaranteed across the league. That means teams will be locking in their rosters, committing to their rotations, and preparing for the playoff push. If Bonner isn't signed before that deadline, her odds of returning drop to nearly zero. Not because she's forgotten, but because there's simply no space left. And let's not ignore the mental toll. Sitting at home, training alone, watching former teammates win without you, it breaks most athletes. It gnaws at their confidence. It tests their patience. Bonner has stayed silent, but silence doesn't mean strength. It can mean uncertainty, fear, or regret. And from the outside looking in, that's exactly what this feels like. What's tragic is how preventable this could have been. Had Bonner stayed with Indiana through the Commissioner's Cup, played her role, and shown she could still be a valuable team piece even in limited minutes, this story would be completely different. She could have been a part of a winning culture, picked up that elusive Commissioner's Cup title, and left the game on her own terms. Instead, her final WNBA chapter may be one of absence, miscalculation, and missed opportunity. So now, all eyes are on that last roster spot. One final decision, one final chance. If Indiana signs someone else in the coming days, the league won't say it outright, but the message will be clear. Dewanna Bonner's WNBA career is over, and it didn't end with a bang. It ended with silence. Dewanna Bonner didn't go out with a standing ovation. She didn't get the farewell tour, the final home game tribute, or the tearful press conference. Instead, she disappeared, quietly, voluntarily, and now, it seems permanently. For a player who once dominated the court, led championship teams, and built a legacy as one of the WNBA's most consistent veterans, this is a devastating and unexpected ending. The truth is, Bonner didn't have to go out like this. She had a team, a contract, and a shot at a title. But she gave it up because she believed the fit wasn't right. She waited for a better opportunity that never came. She gambled on herself in a league that moves too fast to wait, and in that pause, her moment passed. Now the league has moved on. Indiana is winning. Young stars are rising. Teams have shifted their focus toward the future. Bonner, once the centerpiece of rosters, is now an afterthought in media coverage, a ghost in scouting reports. And unless something truly unexpected happens, like a sudden injury forcing a team into a desperation move, her time may be up for good. There's no shame in aging out of professional sports, but there is tragedy in refusing to adapt. Bonner's story could have ended with grace, mentorship, and celebration. Instead, it's ending in silence, uncertainty, and missed opportunity. This wasn't a retirement, it was an erasure. A quiet, unsettling example of how fast this league can forget events. It's legends when they stop showing up. And for Dewanna Bonner, the door didn't slam shut. It slowly closed while she stood outside, waiting for someone to open it. But no one did, and now it's locked behind her.